All right. What's good? It's your boy Busama. We're back here on Street Runners TV, and I'm super excited to have this special guest on today's episode. So I know this episode is definitely going to be one of my favorite episodes that I've ever dropped on through my whole podcast career. I'm already knowing this will be. So get ready. Today's guest, we have none other than Dr. Kennesha Woods. So Dr. Kennesha Woods is a woman of many hats. That's how I'm feeling like. So she's a woman. She's a women's probation parole officer, social justice advocate, motivational speaker, trainer, and a facilitator. And implicit bias. I literally spent like the whole day trying to remember that name.
You did great.
I'm super sorry. So overall, a great role model for women, and but not just that. She's actually an East High School alumni. So before we get into this podcast, I just want to say again, thank you for spending the time with us and just getting to know you and your background and stuff like that. So with that being said, Miss Dr. Kennesha Woods, let's start with the beginning. Like how was it for you? Because you grew up single parent, single home, grew up on the East Side. But before that, was you born in Oklahoma? Stillwell, Oklahoma, or was it Des Moines, Iowa?
I was actually born in Des Moines, Iowa, Oak Ridge.
Okay.
I was born in Oak Ridge neighborhoods.
Okay.
And my first time leaving Iowa was when I went to Oklahoma State to earn my master's.
Yes, ma'am. Okay.
So yeah.
No, I'm sorry. So from Oak Ridge to becoming the woman that you are, like, how were you able to do that? Because a lot of kids, like, being in environments like that, like I guess they don't see the full vision of themselves being successful. So how was that for you? Like, how were you able to obtain that? I would
say education. I feel like my mom always told me that I would play around in my room and she would hear me like talking to myself. And I would be like passing papers out on the floor, acting like a teacher. I had students in my room. Yeah. And so I feel like I just gravitated towards education. I feel like I gravitated towards education at a really early age. And so I was always wanted to have good grades, as well as I remember getting the President Award in like 5th grade. And so it always meant a lot to me to get good grades. And then I was always in like drill team, basketball, track. And so I just feel like that was just a goal of mine. And then what really I feel like was a big change in my life was my senior year. I didn't have classes 6th and 7th period. And so I chose to work at Hyatt Middle School. So I worked in their office. Yeah. And with my high school, I feel like a lot of my peers were involved in the criminal justice system. Yeah. I was always trying to help them turn in their work, like so they could graduate. And then I started working at Hyatt Middle School, and I seen probation officers coming in, and I would have to go get 6th, 7th, 8th grade students to provide UAs for a urine sample for their probation officer. I'm like, wow, people get in trouble this young. Yeah. And so I thought at that time, like, I gotta give back in this area. Like, I gotta work with young people and try to get them to where they're not entering the system. And so I feel like, and when I started like my bachelor's program, I went in and I chose my major, which was Shoutout Family Services and Criminal Justice, and it stayed the same the whole time. Like, I didn't change my major. Yeah. So I feel like it was purpose driven for me. Value in education, and then wanting to have an impact on like my peers and then young people so they didn't end up like my peers.
Yes, ma'am.
That's what I would have to say. I ran into my drama teacher, Ruth Ann Gaines, coaches, track coaches, basketball coaches. So just having mentors in my life that continued to pour into me in that way. But I really think education kind of just kept me focused. Yeah. Right?
So you spoke sports too. Did sports play a part like in like getting through? Because I know with sports, like for myself, when I think of sports, like it helped me get through like tough times and stuff like that, whether if it was dealing at home or if I'm having a tough time at school, I can just let off that steam with sports. So did sports help you keep a good mindset throughout the whole?
It
process?
did. It did. So basketball and track, like I always had something to do after school, or I can hang out with my teammates if need be. And I feel like, so I had school, then I had sports, and I had extracurricular activities. And then when I went to college, I did the same thing. I had school, and then I joined Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated.
Yes, ma'am.
So there again, I found something else to latch on to, right? And so after a while, it wasn't until 2013 when I was getting my master's in Oklahoma that I remembered stuff started coming back to me, like my childhood experience, everything I had been through. And it hit me hard because I kind of had forgot. I feel like it kind of got tucked to the back of my head and I was in grind mode, right? But then when I was living by myself in Oklahoma and working on my master's, working a full-time job, it's like everything just hit me and I'm like, how did I get here? Just asking myself that question, but I just kept going. I got a therapist for the first time, trying to process all this because it's like, how did I get here? So I worked through therapy for like a year, you know. And
I was because like a lot of people in the Black community, like when they think of therapists, like they're like, oh, I don't want no therapist. I can't talk to no therapist. Like, how was that getting that therapist? Like, who put that seed in your head? Like, maybe I do need to talk to a therapist.
And so that's actually a good question because my first therapist was my pastor's wife, the first lady of the church, and she was white. And so we talked about how her perspective may be different than mine, but she was trained to have a cultural perspective. And so out of that, what changed my life because I was able to set boundaries with my family and what they expected me to do for them while I was also trying to work on myself. I was also able to make sense of the trauma that I was reminded of during that time to try to like get through that, identify with it and accept it in a way that I can continue to move forward. And so I graduated therapy. Like she told me like, you've done great. Like this is my first time being able to tell someone, I think you graduated therapy. And so from that experience, I then learned like, I like therapy, but I don't know how easy it is to find someone who could identify with me being a Black person the way that my first lady did. So I continued to have Black therapists thereafter. But therapy was life-changing for me when I did it for the first time.
And then you said something too about like while you were a kid, like you had the chance to collect UAs and turn them in and stuff. Why do you think? Because something that I've noticed, like I see more kids wanting to be in the system opposed to like wanting to be a part of the system. Like, so when I say that, like kids would rather go to prison, go to jail than opposed to like being a probation officer or maybe a cop. Why do you think that type of mentality is like, is heavy in our community? So
4% of Iowa, and don't quote me, it may have went up a little, but 4% of Iowa is Black. 21% is incarcerated or imprisoned. And so I think the Black community understands the system to be more so against them. However, that mentality has made it to where we're not at the round table, right? And so in my unit as a women's probation parole officer, there's 2 Black probation officers, and I'm one of them. There's so many different conversations that happen in that space that it's helpful that I'm in there at the table, right? Because Iowa's predominantly white. They don't know about non-white people, and that's okay. But you need somebody at the table who does, that's not guessing. And so I always encourage people, non-white people, just people of color, to jump in that space. We need people in that space so that the things that are happening right now aren't happening. The oppression of Black people, mass incarceration, or just Black people or people of color being misunderstood. We have to be at the round table.
Amen.
At some point.
If so, like, before we go any deeper, if you could change maybe like one thing that you see when it comes to like how police been treating our people, or just how police govern maybe just Iowa in general, what would one thing that you would like to change?
If I could change one thing, I would, if I had any say, I would want to adopt some type of accountability piece when something inappropriate, unfair, or unwarranted does happen.
Yes, ma'am.
A consistent accountability protocol or just response to what just happened.
Yes, ma'am. That makes sense. Okay. And then, so like I told you before the podcast started, I kind of did some digging, and let's just take it a little bit back. So thank you to Brandon Brown and Amar Sama for giving me some information.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. So Taco Bell, the Taco Bell era. Mm-hmm. So I was told, like, you know, Kennesha, you know, she got mad at me and threw some hot water on me back in the days. So how was that time working at Taco Bell for you?
Oh, man. So KFC Taco Bell provided me with a lot of money. I bought my first car there while I was working there. I feel like being raised in a single parent home, that kind of gave me my to buy my own clothes, buy my own shoes, buy my own car, kind of begin to like find my own way in helping my mom.
Yes, ma'am.
So the whole hot water thing, I have overcome some anger problems. I feel like what I went through in my life, my trauma and being raised in a single parent home, I was very like angry and aggressive. And so that's what I've broke through in therapy. It's like, where did that anger and that aggression come from?
Yes, ma'am.
And so that's interesting because I just reflected on that. I did that. There's a lot of things that I did. But yeah.
Nah, I just had to throw that out there. You know, just had to, you know what I'm saying? Because nowadays, like, kids, like, they don't want to go get a job. They don't want to, you know, do what is right to stay out the way. So I think for me to bring that up is a good topic for the viewers out there that that happens to be kids that, oh no, I don't want to get a job. Well, look where you're at. You know what I'm saying? Think of if you would have never had that job at that time, where you would have been at. You know what I'm saying? Had you probably would have met a guy, got pregnant early, and this wouldn't have been. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I bring that up. So in high school, so when you made that transition to college, how was that transition for you? And when you were making that transition, did it always dawn in your head like, all right, I'm going to go after my doctorates, I'm going to go after my master's, or I'm going to be this woman that I set out to be?
No, actually, so I just, what I remember is being a senior in high school and a letter came to my house and it said, you have been nominated to be awarded the Multicultural Vision Program Scholarship. And it gave me, so it's a MVP scholarship. It's a full ride to Iowa State University. They pay everything but your room and board.
Okay.
And so they just said, show up. We met this program. They traveled down from Iowa State. My mom and I were asked to come downtown and meet with them. I was interviewed. I was awarded this scholarship.
Okay.
And so I filled out the application by myself. Like sometimes I just look back and I'm like, what happened? Like, where did this come from? And I have to give all grace to God, but Amen. I just, I got awarded that scholarship. I got to Iowa State. My mom and my stepdad drove me to Iowa State. I also was awarded a $300 scholarship, the Lamont Lovelady scholarship. So I took that money and bought like everything that I needed in my dorm. Didn't have a laptop at the time, but I did buy everything in my dorm, got dropped off, and I just took day by day. Like, I knew I wanted to be in a sorority, and at the time, Delta Sigma Theta was not at Iowa State, so I was looking forward to doing student exchange, where I swapped universities for a year, and I was
in a different country,
in a different state. This one was going to be a different state.
Okay.
And then I was thinking I would pledge at that school. Well, then one of my mentors, Japana Kellogg, was like, just be patient.
Yeah.
And so then my sophomore year, I was able to pledge. And so I feel like I was just taking it year by year. Even when my junior year, I joined the Ronald E. McNair program. And it's in order to join that program, you had to agree that you wanted to go get your doctorates. Well, I'm in 11th grade. I was like, sure, I'll get my doctorates because it was a free stipend. Yes, and then you did a research project. And so when I finished my bachelor's, then I was like, well, I'm going to apply for master's programs. And then when I got done with my master's, I was a professional for 4.5 years. And
like doing what?
Like I worked at the Yes Shelter.
Okay.
I worked at Iowa Homeless Youth Homes. So I was continuing my path with young people. And then that's when I started working for the Department of Corrections. So I did that for 4.5 years, and then I applied for a doctoral program at Drake. And I guess I was like, no, I'm not gonna go. But when I came back around to it, I forgot I applied. I came into the application was completed. I just had to hit submit. And it said I did that a year ago, and I didn't even remember I did it. And so I feel like sometimes people say, how'd you do it? I just feel like I had all this trauma that was there, but I just had put it to the side. And I think each step was just ordered. And I feel like I didn't know anything. There was no plan to go get my master's when I went to get my bachelor's. There was no plan to get my doctorates when I went to get my master's.
So like leading up to getting your master's, like what was the most difficult part about college that you felt like, all right, I know like this is difficult, but I'm still gonna push through? Or was there ever like a moment in college that you even thought like I can't get through this part of whatever this is?
No, because I feel like school was my safe haven. Like now that I'm done with school, that's scary for me because I've been in school like my whole life.
Jeez.
Like elementary, middle school, high school, college. And so I'm not gonna say it wasn't easy because I'm very impulsive. I'm very goal oriented. So I have tutors, I'm gonna reach out, ask for help, tell you I don't know, stay after class. And so I wouldn't say it was easy, but it was my safe haven. So it was like I was absorbed in it.
Yes, ma'am.
My sorority was there, so I get to travel to different states and compete in step shows. And so I feel like that was my dream. Like I was living the dream, a dream that I didn't even know was in front of me.
So like during those moments, how were you able to balance all of that? Because I remember I read you were a full-time student, you had a job, you also was trying to build relationships outside of your school, just so when you get out, you have those relationships intact. And then you did multiple things while being a full-time student. So how were you able to balance that, like all of those different things? Yeah,
it's interesting you say that. So like I have a planner, it's called Live Resilient. And that planner came about because I'm like, my grandma passed away. And I felt like I lost purpose. So I was like, sometimes I just couldn't get up and continue to do what I was doing. I was working on my doctorates, and I'm like, how did I get here? And I saved all my planners, like all the way back from high school. And so I'm like, my planner. Like, and you could see I wrote something down, I crossed it off. Like in all my planners, scribbles and crosses off. So when you ask me that, my planner, like I would literally say to-do lists, and then it'll say what to do, and I got fixated on executing what was on my to-do list and writing down what I need to do, from my classes to paying my bills to what I needed to do to pay my bills. Because the whole time that I was in school, I worked full-time. Full-time, part-time, again, like still in my sorority, still serving, doing community service and stuff like that. And I really think that I was supported by my planner, but then I'm also just very goal-oriented.
Yes, ma'am. How would you... This is a personal question for me now. But so how would you like try to be goal orientated? Because like I have all type of goals, and I try to I got big goals and small goals. So I try to focus on the small goals. But how do you just stay goal orientated and go attack those small goals so you can get to that big goal?
So to me, it's not real until you write it down.
Okay.
And so right now I got a lot on my plate. And so what I did was I went in my planner and I just wrote down the most immediate stuff, because you can overwhelm yourself. And sometimes when you become overwhelmed, you shut down. And so to me, it's like, what needs to happen tomorrow and the next day and the next day? Don't write nothing else down until you have executed those. Because if you look too much ahead, you don't do what you need to do before that to get that done to even get there. And so to me, it's just actually asking yourself, what's the bigger goal? now what do I need to do to get there? I need to start writing those down. Like, what do I need to do? What are those steps to continue to move forward? And then you kind of just, to me, I like to say you get addicted to just crossing it off and moving to that next, you know what I'm saying, that next step. And sometimes it's like, just write one thing down and then execute that, then write the next thing down. Because some people just get overwhelmed by goals, but then I hear a lot of people talk and they have so much in their head that they're not doing nothing.
Yeah.
And it's just like, you know, it's like you have so many ideas that you haven't made one move.
Amen. Yeah.
And so then I just tell people, like, write, what is that one step? You got to take one step.
Yes, ma'am.
And then, so write that one step down. And then sometimes there's like 5 different moves in order for you to make that one step. And so what are those moves that need to happen? And so that's why I just encourage, like, a planner. It's not planning your life, it's giving you motivation. You're writing it down, making it real so that you see, this is what I'm trying to do, and you're holding yourself accountable. It's like an accountability partner.
Yes, ma'am. So, like, what, because with college and stuff like that, you know, like, you got parties, you got people that want to indulge into crazy stuff. How were you able to weave out, like, the good friends and the bad friends and be able to keep the good friends by your side?
That took a lot of work, because a lot of my friends were childhood friends. So I kept trying to bring them with me.
Yes, ma'am.
Right? And so life was just displaying that they can't come.
Yeah.
Right? So it would be the type of thing where it's like, I have all this stuff that I'm working towards, and you have an open bottle in my car. You gotta throw it out.
Yeah.
You don't want to throw it out. Well, you can't be in my car.
Yeah.
You know, so it was like type of things where I started protecting my space. And so if that didn't go along with you, that's okay. But, you know, we have to depart. Or just when I started working for Department of Corrections, I had friends that was going to jail and would have like ankle bracelets, and I'm like, well, I can't be at your house. You know, so it's almost, like I said, like, school saved me, and then I've been working for the Department of Corrections for 9 years. And so it's like, I'm practically on probation because there's stuff that we can't do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes, ma'am.
And so I just feel like the boundaries were naturally being set, and the friends that didn't belong was automatically just falling off based on where I was going.
Yes, ma'am. So, like, because you said you worked for the Department of Corrections, right? Was it hard coming back to Des Moines and, like, being around, like, because I'm sure you probably got that, oh, you work for the feds or you this and that. Like, how was that for you? Like, because for me, I actually attempted to major in criminal justice before whatever. And the one thing that sat in my head was like, well, I don't want to come back home and I have friends that do this and this, and then they look at me as like the outside guy and don't want to mess with me. So that took me away from my path. So how was that for you?
It's the hardest thing ever. So, like, I went to school with a lot of people, or people would say, like, you're so-and-so's daughter.
Yeah.
I know your mama and your dad and your grandpa. They would, instead of calling my work number, they would inbox me on Facebook, or I have the same number since high school. So they would call me.
Yeah.
And so we have this fraternization form that we have to sign to basically say we're going to keep boundaries with people who are on supervision.
Oh,
and
yeah.
so I'm like, well, that's my classmate, and that's my cousin, that's my brother, that's my uncle. I was miserable at first. I didn't know if I was going to lose my job. Like, so I was trying to tell my family and friends, like, I have to set boundaries with y'all. And they're like, oh, you're bogus. You're a cop, or you're a snitch. Because I would have to say, so-and-so contacted me. I have to tell my job that. And so then they would get talked to, and then they would tell me, like, why didn't you just tell me? But I'm young, and I'm just trying to protect this money that's coming in. Like,
Amen.
I have a state email at like 23. You know what I mean? I'm working for the state. And so I didn't care about them. Like, I was just trying to, like, protect my job. So it was so hard. But I feel like I have a foundation now.
Okay.
But it was really hard because you work for the Department of Corrections where you grew up.
Okay. Yeah.
Right? And so you shared space with probably a lot of people in the Black community at that point in some way, shape, or form, whether it's sports or in class, or if you used to hang out with them. And now you're in this role where you have to supervise them in a capacity of them being,
Yes, ma'am.
in trouble with the law. So it was really hard setting those boundaries and still trying to play both sides, like still trying to show love and then also abide by my job's rules. As a Black person, it's very hard, I think, to work for the Department of Corrections when you're in a city that you grew up in.
And I'm sure, like, while going, because you work with the women, you're a women parole officer.
Yes, I started off with men.
Woo!
The men were hard. It was harder to get through the men than the women.
Well, yeah,
because the men, like I've hosted basketball tournaments for Juneteenth, so they had to pay me money to get on the basketball team. Men are way more hard-headed when it comes to like still going out.
Yeah.
So they're like, hey, Kennesha. I'm like, no, you're not supposed to be here. Like, so the men, I was excited to leave from them because I feel like the men are way more like want to talk to you and then they get mad at you. So it's a little more scary when they're mad at you.
Yeah. I can only imagine.
Yeah. So now that I've been with the women, I feel like it's more chill. And even if I do have to say so-and-so was doing this or whatever, I feel like it's way more chill than the men.
So like out of your 9 years of doing this particular work, what would you say is the most difficult part about this field of work?
The most difficult part about it is the rules that we have to follow working there. Because I enjoy supervising the women. I feel like a mentor. I feel like it's my calling to just give back to women. But I feel like the most difficult part is just the association, like coming from a family of individuals who are in the system, brothers, uncles, cousins, and like the rules of like, you can't associate, you can't, like that's the part that could set you apart. And I think that, to answer your question, I really think that is the reason why you don't get a lot of people of color that work for the system, because the rules attached to it can set you apart from your family. Like there's rules, like if you're gonna be around this family member, make sure you notify your supervisor. Like, and keep it to a minimum, almost like keep it to like barbecues, family functions.
What?
So if I was really close to my cousin and they got on supervision, it would be really hard for us to still associate with each other.
So you would have to contact your job like, hey, I was around my...
Dang. If you know that it's coming up, you have to report it. And so I think the rules around it, the rules to be a professional in the Department of Corrections, and then the history that the correctional system has with Black people, it just doesn't go. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, ma'am.
It conflicts. There's friction there.
Have you ever seen yourself like in a moment where you probably like seen somebody walk across those hallways that you actually grew up with and knew and just felt like just wanted to cry or just like wanted to extend a hand, but you knew like I can't at this point?
Used to. That used to be me, but now I'm a professional. I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm not doing. So I'll hug you. There's cameras. So the camera, so if they come in, I let them know. That was in the beginning. I didn't really know the rules. I was just trying to keep my job.
Yes, ma'am.
But now I feel like I'm situated. I trust myself. And then so if there's a camera there, I'll embrace. Or I'll say, how are you doing, etc. Or I'll even ask like my supervisor, like, hey, do you mind if I associate with this person? It's my cousin. They're on supervision. I'm their support. Yeah. And then it's okay.
Jeez,
that's the tightest part about my job. Like, I'm on probation.
I get what you're saying. Okay. Yeah. I get what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah.
So live resilient. Where did that name come from, and how long have you been doing this business?
So I launched last Mother's Day, and again, it was after I lost my grandma, and I was thinking, I'm just like, what do I do? Well, I was working on my dissertation, and I feel like God told me like planner, and I'm like, planner. So I'm just looking. I'm like, planner. So I go looking for my planners. And I literally said out loud, I'm like, God, you want me to make a planner? I'm like, why would I make a planner? So I'm like, oh, the planner is what's going to get me out this rut too. Like, I need to start writing down what it is I need to do to get off this couch, like after my grieving process. And so then my line name, my sorority gave me resilient as my line name, because they said no matter what I went through when I was going through the process, I would fall, get back up. I would fall hard, but I'd be back up. And then so I was like, you know what? Like, living resilient is what gets you through. No matter what you go through, you can get back up. Knowing that you can get back up and keep going is a thing. So when I created the planner, I didn't just create a basic planner. Like, I wanted it to centralize Black people, because your basic planner doesn't have Black national holidays. So I added Black national holidays, 2 pages of Black inventions, and then like goal setting pieces, the 5 pillars of resilience. So I just wanted to really like make it like a handbook if you really use it, and get you to where you need to be if you do get stuck or if you do want to elevate.
So that was actually going to be my next question, was the 5 pillar of resiliency that you wrote down. How have that played a part in your life and got you to where you're at right now?
It's so interesting because not even knowing before I found the 5 pillars of resilience, not even knowing that those were the 5 pillars, those were the things that impacted my life. Positive relationships, having goals, like just being aware of what it is that I want to do. For some reason, I've just always known like this is what I want to do, and this is the goals that I'm going to set to get there. And so I feel like I've always been the one that's like positive vibes only. Get away from me. If you have bad energy, no bad energy. And I just been one to protect my space, because like I feel like the more successful that I got, the more I had to protect what I had just did. Like there's no way that I could just throw all this away. I've worked so hard. And so when I share the 5 pillars of resilience, it's like choose one to work on in your life. Like you want to work on just having all positive relationships, do that. You want to work on like to where you're just setting goals and achieve them, do that. And so I feel like it's just a good way to like to get you started. If you want to, because here's the thing, we all have trauma. So everybody wants to tell you about their trauma, but they don't tell you your ability to beat out your trauma. So the resilience piece is like, here's your trauma, this is what you've been through, but let me tell you how resilient you are. Let me tell you how you could overcome anything by doing these 5 things.
Sheesh. See, and you're right, like people always talk about trauma but don't necessarily teach you how to get up out of that trauma. And then you said too, like you help people with mental illness and stuff like that. So what made you want to get into that, like go that direction as well, like start helping people with their mental illness or whatever the case may be? So I have anxiety. I was diagnosed with attachment abandonment disorder, impulsive anxiety. And so we have overcame as a family, me, my mom, and him, multiple times to where he has attempted suicide. It has been unsuccessful all 3 times. So I grew up with a brother who was trying to take himself out. You know what I'm saying? Where I was graduating high school, and he said he was dressed and ready to come, but then he's like, I'm not gonna come. But his mental health took over, right? So I had to understand as a young person, he would love to come to my graduation, but Bubba, you can come to the next one, not even knowing if I'm gonna have a next one. And so at a young age, I was dealing with mental health, my anger problems and all that, and then my brother's diagnosis and stuff. And I've continued to be the family advocate, so I've continued to be his advocate. And then my nephew came, his son, he's ODD, ADHD, he has behavioral issues. And so I become the family advocate for him at school as a Black student with behavior issues. And so it's just something that's near and dear to my heart. So through my job, I just advocate not only with my clients, but to their family and try to get them the resources that they need. Do you think like when it comes to mental illness, like people are willing to like let people in, or better yet, let people know what they're going through at that time? Because like, I don't know how you feel about this, but I'm a dude, like when I see people post about, oh, I'm feeling this or I have mental illness, like I kind of don't believe them, because like in my mind, like I feel like the real mental illness people don't say it. Like you would have to like see it, or you would have to see it, or they would have to tell you. And the reason why I brought that up is because like I actually had a friend hang himself day after we hung out and stuff like that. And what that showed me is like, dang, like you actually don't know who's going through what unless somebody tell them. So like, do you think like when it comes to mental illness, do you like believe in people when they start to, oh, I have this going on, or like once they start putting it all up on Facebook or social media, like how do you I guess, differ from, okay, this person's actually going through this and this person's really not?
I believe everybody and anybody when they say it.
Okay.
And so I feel like I appreciate the social media platform for those who don't have support. And I feel like sometimes that's their way to put it out there. But when I hear mental health, I believe you. I'm gonna work with you and hear you out and give you resources as if I know you're telling the truth, like 100%.
Yes, ma'am.
But that is probably because of my experience with it. But yeah, I believe people when they reach out or when they post something. So I'm that person who's in people's inbox that I don't know. If their status comes across me, I check on them. I don't know them, but that's just what I do. Yeah. Like I just go into their inbox and ask them, how are they? If they need a 1-800 number, if they need somebody to talk to. Yeah. So I've built a lot of relationships by just randomly inboxing people that do that.
Yes, ma'am.
And then sometimes they might come back like, oh, I was just having a bad day. Like I still don't believe you, but I'm gonna let that go because I've reached out and did my part. Amen. But I really think that you had these real thoughts, but it was just embarrassing. And so now you don't want to talk about it no more. But I just make sure I do my part. If
somebody was going through mental illness out there, like what would be like some tips that you would give them to maybe like get up out of that thinking?
I give them like self-care tips to put themselves first. I ask them like, what are they doing that's stressful? If they say they want to talk to a therapist, I have a list of Black therapists that I forward to people. I've met people at like Smoky Row if they want to have like one-on-one conversations or whatever. But I really just try to be resourceful. And let them know like you want a Black therapist, like, and then I try to tell them like therapy's not bad, like you could or if you don't want to go to therapy, you can talk to your pastor, you could talk to your first lady, or you could talk to a coach. And so I just kind of try to meet them where they are. You can't really talk people into doing therapy sometimes, and so I just try to meet them where they are, just make sure they have a supportive person.
That's good. See, that's I respect that. I 100% respect that. So before we started this podcast, we were talking about the trips that you took. But actually, I feel like, the trips that you took. So Kennesha had the chance to go to 50 states and 9 countries. Out of all 50 states, let's start with the states. What was the best state in America that you enjoyed? And what was one piece that you took away that I guess carries with you?
The best state?
Besides Iowa, because you know Iowa's.
So,
I
would have to say, when I was in Seattle, I just felt so free. Like, I don't like rain. Yeah. And I was in the rain, like dancing and jumping in the air. I got pictures like mid-air in the rain and like, I don't know why, but I would say Seattle and Alaska. I would have to say Alaska because I went when it was sweater temperature. Okay. And it was 24-hour daylight.
Okay. What?
So like, when we're in school, we learned about glaciers and you just got to see like animals just walking, glaciers, like bears, black bears. Like it was just, it's like a video game or TV in Alaska. And I thought that was awesome.
Did you see like Eskimos and
I seen everything. It was so awesome. Like,
what do they eat out there? Like, besides fish? I
don't know what they eat, but I know. Is it the whales? Yeah. I think it's the whales. They're becoming extinct because people are going there and like shooting them and capturing them. Yeah. But so you can just see whales. Like you just see them
on like the land?
In the water. No, in the water.
Like dead?
In Alaska. No,
okay.
Alive.
Okay,
but there's signs that say don't shoot them, don't kill them.
Shoot.
So I think that just the animal, just seeing like free animals like outside of us that aren't in a zoo, was nice.
How about the countries, the 9 countries?
Africa.
Yes. I was gonna ask you, but I wanted to save it for the podcast. Like South Africa or just Africa?
South Africa.
Yeah. Was it more modern or?
South Africa. So I purposely stayed in the Airbnb. I didn't want to stay in the hotel. So I had a driver. I hired a driver. and I stayed with someone who lived there. So I wanted to really feel like I didn't want the touristy. And so I hired the driver. So the driver was just taking me everywhere.
Yeah. Like, hey, this is where it is.
Oh, yeah. And he was like holding all my shopping bags and my cell phone and stuff because he said, you look like you're from America.
Yeah.
He took my jewelry. He said, he just took me all my stuff. And he's like, you look like you're from America. And so just give me all your stuff and I got you. So he just took me touristy places, non-touristy places. It was just amazing because like you hear all this stuff about Africa that's just not true.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
It's so beautiful and people are rich. Like, you know what I'm saying?
They got
like,
it out there. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm like, what? Like, and so, because we get lies. So like there's a lot of lies, but it was beautiful. It was nice. It was a good time. Ate authentic food. Just did a lot of authentic things.
What was the one thing that you took away from Africa that you were like, all right, I'm going to embrace this and I'm going to love it and I'm going to make sure that when I get home, they feel it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so I get into a lot of trouble as a professional in a sense of being an advocate, social justice advocate, and just running my mouth about unfair treatment. And so I did the whole Nelson Mandela tour. And I said, I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing because Nelson Mandela was... Nelson Mandela was doing what he, say he was making changes and standing on what he said and, breaking down barriers and stuff, even though he was incarcerated for a great deal of time. But so I walked away like, I'm not changing.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. So my advocacy, I built on my advocacy, like going through the Nelson Mandela monuments and stuff.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
See, man. One day I'm gonna go back to Africa. I got to go see what everybody. I was born there, but like just to go back, being an adult and actually seeing, I think would be one of the. I need to go do it.
Yeah.
But with that being said, like, so moving forward, is there any like new ventures that you're planning on getting into or planning to, like, what's new for? What's to come for Kennesha in the future?
So I want to build my brand. And I just want to be free. This is my first time not being in school. So I'm just excited. I'm really excited right now for nothing.
Yeah.
No lie. Like I could do whatever I want to do right now. Like I could just, and so I want to build my brand, of course. I plan to be a diversity, equity, inclusion consultant, alongside still working for the Department of Corrections, motivational speaking, workshops, trainings on implicit bias, resilience. And so I'm just going to dive in and get my hands dirty and see where it takes me.
Yes, ma'am.
No real direction right now. I'm just excited for what's next, wherever
life brings.
Yeah, wherever the wind blows, and if whatever God intends for me to do, that's what I'm open for that.
Yes, ma'am. And then motivational speaker. How were you able to jump into that? So
people tell me like with my presence, like I can either like light up the room or I can shut all the lights off. Yeah, and so the light, because like I'm very like combative, like when it comes to like
conflict.
That I'm very like I don't mind conflict. Like I'm like this isn't right. This is unfair. This shouldn't be happening. Yeah. So when I get into that, lights are out. But then when I'm when I could brighten up the room, like people gravitate to that. I guess they tell me like I have this spirit that makes them like latch on. Yeah. And so that's how I've gotten a lot of like my speaking engagements. Just like, I want you to come talk. And so I just want that to naturally happen. I'm not going out to fetch anything. I just want it to naturally happen. I feel like I'll be in the spaces where I'm supposed to be in.
Okay. And then being that East High alumni, how did you feel about the whole East High School shooting? Like, what was when you seen that come across your screen, like, what was your first reaction to that? And how do you think we could better that community when it comes to gun violence?
Well, it breaks my heart. I feel like I work for the Department of Corrections because of my experience at East High School. I always feel like our high school, like when they redid it, it looked like Oz. That show, it's a really old show that where men are in prison and stories, but it looks like a prison. Yeah, the way, like the whole lunchroom and how you can look over top from the bars up top and stuff. And I just feel like everybody was always skipping school and Grand Theft Auto, criminal charges. I was trying to get them to come back to school.
Yeah.
So I feel like East has been struggling for a really long time. And so it's interesting that you asked me that, because I'm trying to collaborate with the students and doing some stuff outside of the school. But I'm also going to start working on a project with East High School where, you know how like when you're in sports, there's signing day.
Okay. Yeah.
I want to do that for all of the seniors and whatever universities that they're going to. I would like to like get T-shirts, hats, etc., and have a signing day. So I don't know what to do with the antisocial behaviors and structures of the school, but I want to bring in good energy and pro-social, because they also had Dr. Rollins passed away. He committed suicide. The poet, the person that was the head of the poetry at East.
Okay.
And so he committed suicide, rest in peace. And so there's just been a lot of stuff at East High School. So they lost 2 teachers.
If you don't mind me, do you know like why he went in?
So to be respectful to like their family and stuff, there was some controversy that happened. And then with his mental health, he responded in a way where he committed suicide. That's very public. Everybody knows about that. In the response to the controversy, this couple lost their job at Des Moines Public Schools. And so the students are really feeling from different angles and different ways. And so graduating from East High School, I just want to kind of be a vessel and bring positive energy in there and bring that celebration to where a signing day for seniors. Like, can you get here? Get here, because it's going to be a celebration if you get here.
And because somebody told, like, I've heard somebody speaking, and they were like, well, why do we celebrate the athletes and not celebrate the future entrepreneurs the same way as we celebrate the athlete? Like the guy that that's 7 foot and can shoot or whatever, we should celebrate the kid that can, I don't know, like build a computer or can, I don't know, receive, like if he's smart enough to receive maybe like multiple scholarships, we should be celebrating that. So I really like that. I stand with you on that.
And I think the young people today, they need reward. We all need rewards as humans, but they need rewards. They need rewards waiting for them. They need a reason for the season that they're in at the moment. And I think that'll just be huge. I was part of a project where I did it for North High School, and it was just a beautiful sight to see, you know. Iowa School of Beauty sent stuff for the people who was going there. Like all the colleges sent their hats. Sometimes they sent like flags. And so all the kids got to put this apparel on. And it's just a light for them to keep going. So yeah, that's one of my ideas to do with East High School.
Do you think, okay, so this is just a personal question now. So when it comes to like the liquor stores that's around East High School, do you think that could probably play a role into like why these kids are acting the way that it is, or what's your view on that?
The inside looks like a jail, and the outside, it's not a good setting. What other high school has a liquor store across the street where you can also get snacks and food, you know, right next to your Subway? And so there's just a lot. And so I'm the type of person where there's systemic issues that people are like, there's no control. And I like to look at like, as individuals, how can we respond to these issues? And I think that if we start pouring positive energy into it, because a good mentor or a good light, bringing sororities and fraternities in to do random prep rallies or like auditorium spotlights to where they can do step shows and stuff, or just bringing in good energy. We got to bring in, I think we have to outweigh it, because how do we get this liquor store moved? You know what I mean? And so it's just like, it's the fights, just everything.
Is it true, like, I don't know if this is true or not, but I'm gonna ask, is it true, like, if, let's say there was I don't want to bring up that story because let's say there was like a liquor store that didn't really play any part in the community. Could the community rally behind each other and try to get that liquor store removed from the community?
Always. That's a really good idea. But always, the community can always respond to things like that.
Okay.
And do things like that for sure.
Because I tried to tell somebody this, and they were like, "Bro, you can't." I'm like, "Bro, you could do it."
Yeah, numbers for sure.
Number. Yep. Okay. Wow. That's so. If there was a little girl out there wanting to be Dr. Kennesha Woods, what would your one advice be on getting to where you're at?
To be, I would say, to be intentional. So, everything that you do matters. So if you're fighting or whatever you're doing follows you, it matters. It counts towards anything that you're doing next. Your reputation. And so just to always be mindful is, how do you want people to see me? How do you want people to remember me? And then if you do make a mistake, you can always get back up. Like you could fall, but you got to get back up. So ultimately it's to live resilient, no matter what you go through, to know that you can be resilient and bounce back. But at the same time, be strategic and intentional about your steps.
So now let's say there was a young gentleman out there that's wanting to get his doctor's degree and accomplish the things that you have accomplished. What would your one advice be to that young gentleman?
I think the biggest thing I talk about is specifically a lot of Black males. I talk about it a lot with friends and stuff. And I think what males are missing is an accountability partner. I always say, like, where's the grandpa or the grandma? Or there's always somebody that you like really respect that can really tighten you up and get you straight.
Amen.
And so I feel like a lot of people are lacking an accountability partner.
Yeah.
Like they don't have it in themselves to do it yet. But then like, who's that person who can tighten you up and straighten you out?
Yeah.
And so I think to find an accountability partner, so AKA find a mentor. Like have a mentor on your side.
Yes, ma'am.
That's what I would have to say, because that's a lot to unpack when it comes to our young people. Really just trying to dodge the system or not feel responsible for caring for your family at large. Like not just your mom and your siblings and your dad, but everybody. Like I feel like specifically speaking on the Black male, I feel like the Black male becomes responsible of caring for their entire family. Yeah. And with that, you start doing stuff that gets you quick money. Mm-hmm. And so I think like not breaking that all down and not unpacking that all, I think having a accountability partner or a mentor.
So I wanted to, but I just have to ask this question. How do you keep from out of the system? So I just got a friend that just came home from prison. I'm not gonna drop his name, but how would he keep himself from going backwards? So
they say, there's stable factors. You gotta have a safe place to lay your head. You gotta have money coming in. And if you have a substance abuse issue or a mental health issue, you have to have some substance abuse counseling or a sponsor or a therapist. You gotta have protective factors, right? And so whatever the situation is as to why this person went to prison, they have to have stability. Mm-hmm. That makes sense. Stability. If you don't have a place to lay your head, if you don't have no money, there's no comfort in that. Yeah. If you don't have a support system, there's no comfort in that. Like who are you going to go to? So whether it's a friend, you just have to. So that's even going back to just how we case plan people. The less stability that you have, the higher risk you are to reoffend.
Okay, that makes sense.
If that makes sense, yeah.
That makes sense. Okay, so last but not least, let's just get this, because I wanted to say this, but I didn't know how you would feel about this, so I said it today. So shout out to Brandon for this one. So Brandon told me before we leave, he was like, back in high school, Kennesha seen us in the back. We were playing dice. And she pretty much stopped us. But she understood. I mean, we understood why she stopped us because she wanted us to be great. So could you just talk about that time and why you did that?
Well, I told you that our school was bad.
Yeah.
East High was bad. People were getting in trouble with the law. They were skipping class, skipping school. Yes, so my friends, they could not be my friends skipping class. So I went into the classroom and I told our drama teacher that they were gambling. They were skipping class, and I told them where they could be found. Because out of all the people messing up in the school, my friends could not start joining them.
Amen. I'm with you on that. I'm with you.
They called me a snitch, and everybody said that it makes sense why I work for the Department of Corrections, because I was telling on people in high school. Yeah. But everybody was not doing well, and so I was telling on them. Just think, the athletes, the people that were doing well were started slipping on me. So I told on them. And they were found and brought to class.
But it all worked out, though.
It did.
It all worked out at the end, so don't even be mad, bro.
Tough love.
A lot of people need that, for real. I had a friend that did that for me, too. Shout out to you. But nah, thank you so much, Dr. Kennesha Woods.
You're welcome.
For, again, spending this time with me and my guy in the back. So with that being said, is there anything that you want to leave off with? If you want people to go find you, social media, website?
You can follow me on Facebook at Live Resilient and on Instagram at Live Resilient. And from there, my website. You'll find my website on there and get some gems dropped on you on how you live resilient and keep up with me as well as I continue to live resilient.
Yes, ma'am. Amen. Yep. Amen. So with that being said, again, thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of Street Runners TV, and look forward to next week's episode. I don't know who's going to be on it just yet, but just look forward to. But with that being said, thank you, and peace out.